Apologize for all of our listeners who were misinformed that we'd be the very first podcast to cover the Game of Gold reality poker show. Ned Negrano's Dat Poker podcast actually beat us to it. But it's a little bit of a cheat for them because they have one of the main stars of the show in their podcast. So I figure, in order to play fair, we have the lovely Charlie Carrel from Game of Gold with us as my co-host for this episode of the Two Fish at the Table Poker podcast. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm Charlie Carrel, and I'm glad to be here. As you all know, I ran deep in the main against Colton Snuffer, who we interviewed here on this
Well,
pod.
not you, but we, yes.
Right, exactly. So I'm very happy to be here.
I see you have a great shirt this time. I know you went kind of shirtless and on the show. I'm glad to see you're fully clothed.
Yes, thank you. I'm very happy to have finally put on a shirt. It's very cold here in Massachusetts, so I decided I would, be a little warmer.
All right, guys, jokes aside, welcome. I'm Legend of Ben, one on Poker Stars.
And I'm your other host, East Coast Sam on Poker Stars.
And welcome to our first ever sort of kind of classic podcast television episode talking about the brand new, very exciting, very interesting Game of Gold brought to you by GGpoker, a poker survival reality show that premiered last week, and episode 2 dropped yesterday. And so we're just here to talk about our experiences, our thoughts, our analysis on the many layers that goes into this program.
Yeah, so this is a really unique show. It actually is a game show in broad strokes, and it's very different than really anything we've covered on this channel thus far. I mean, the closest sort of comparison I can make is Face the Ace, kind of. I mean, it's less of a poker after dark style cash game experience. It's more than that. It's kind of hard to explain sort of in broad strokes. We're just going to have to go into the challenges themselves, as well as how the show is presented and talk about it in more detail.
And I should say before we begin that we've talked before how reality shows, reality competition shows are really up our alley from when we were just kids, Survivor, The Mole, Big Brother, Amazing Race, just a few of the many shows that we have watched growing up. And so some of the editing and the style and the production side of how these shows are produced, we're very used to them. And so I think we have a fairly, well-informed opinion of how we can compare the overall production of this show to other ones. And I mentioned that, I should say at the top, this is a very well-produced show. We'll get into each component of the show, obviously, but just 2 episodes in, I'm very impressed.
Same here. I mean, this really definitely feels like they made a concerted effort to make a different type of show, really make a reality show that would be more up the alley of people who watch Survivor and The Amazing Race and The Genius and shows from South Korea than traditional poker content. I think they're definitely trying to expand their footprint here. And I think that they have a good tool to do this. I mean, a couple little improvements here and there that they could make for sure. But overall, yeah, I'm very impressed with how they've been doing these first 2 episodes. I'm curious to see how the rest of the season will pan out. This is going to be a full season of television. So yeah, I mean, this would definitely be something I could see airing on CBS, or not even just CBS Sports, just CBS period, especially if you can get a big group of players with interesting personalities like the ones that they have thus far. They have a really good mix of players. They have Daniel Negreanu, Maria Ho, some big names, as well as some lesser known names, and just everybody's been fairly well cast and edited thus far.
Yeah, why don't we start with the cast of the show? Because any reality show needs a good cast. And I'm not suggesting that you need to have the top 16 best poker players in the world or 16 no names that we've never heard of before. I think you need to have people with poker chops, B, people with exuberant personalities, not just guys that sit on the table, hoodie, sunglasses, headphones in, don't say a word the whole time. And you want to also mix in some maybe less experienced people that maybe will be kind of fish out of water playing with these heavy hitters, but also can give you maybe something that average Joe or average Gene can kind of root for from a amateur point of view. And at the same time, it's also good to have people from different backgrounds, different parts of the world. And I think most importantly, is a little cliche, but also the male-female split. How do you divide up the casting with male in a poker world that's still dominated by guys? How do you, have a splash of women in there, but not, overdoing it or also underrepresenting them at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty good mixture of players in terms of some of the lesser known names. We do have Charlie Carrel in the mix, who, has wasn't as isn't as famous now as he used to be, but he's definitely still around. And then also people like Nikita Luther, who ran deep in the main a couple of years ago, and has also had cashes and deep runs in other events. And then also just people I've just never heard of, like Kevin Martin is the first person who's introduced here. He's been playing poker for 8 years. He's won 300K. So he's clearly a professional poker player and has had some success. But we're introduced to these players for the first time. And again, the edit is very even thus far, I think. I mean, some players get a little bit more of an edit than other players, but I think they haven't been, putting Daniel Negreanu front and center to the exclusion of everybody else. They've been giving, Kevin Martin's gotten a lot of clips. Olga, who's this Ukrainian player who I think is probably the most obscure person on the list, even though she has 46 cashes and has done very well. She's all been getting also a pretty big edit. They've been doing a good job giving moments to each of these players throughout, especially in the green room watching the events happening. We get to see all this commentary and thoughts as they're offered. Not just as a good poker commentary, people talking about what their teammates are doing, what other people are doing, but also just like humorous reactions to things or lack thereof in the cases of a couple players. It's all pretty good.
Yeah, and speaking to the edit of each member of the cast, I would argue just from the first 2 episodes alone, I'd argue 13 out of 16 have had multiple moments each that I can like really resonate with. I would say 3 of the 16, I'm talking Jungleman, ironically, he's been a little bit quiet in the reaction room. Robinson and Soiza, they've been pretty quiet, at least in the moments that we've seen, which is not a slight against them. It's actually a testament to the editing that we've had 13 out of 16 people so adequately represented in the edit, because you can watch like Russell on Survivor Samoa, you literally had over half the season where half the cast did literally nothing the whole time. And so I would say, honestly, if you can get 12 out of 16 or better, a well-run, because obviously we're going to lose some of these players, slightly early on in the season. So it's good that we get so many people to make an impact on you so that you don't feel cheated when they leave before you get to know them at all.
Yeah, I mean, speaking more detailed about the edit, so there's a traditional sort of studio where they do the challenges as well as had all the players introduced at the beginning. Then there's confessional style interviews where they're talking to the camera, answering questions from producers about how the game's going. And then there are green rooms. So the first challenge is a team sit and go. So the cast of 16 players. They're divided into teams of 4, and then the teams had to decide in which order the players would go in. So the first round is for the smallest amount of coins, second's a little bit more, third's a little bit more, and the fourth is a mystery round. We don't know how many coins that'll be delegated just yet. So as a result, 12 of the 16 players are in green rooms watching the action happen. They stay within their teams. We don't actually see the screens in which they're watching the cast on. It seems like they actually were able to see the whole cards from everybody. So that's kind of nice. I don't know if it was on a delay or something. I imagine it was a bit of a delay. But anyway, so again, there's a lot of ample opportunities to really get an opportunity to hear from each of these players. Jungle Man, yeah, definitely has sat back a little bit in these early stages, though. He does seem like it's kind of almost funny how little he reacts to the events that are happening. But yeah, again, a lot of opportunities here for sort of what we call edgic in reality TV show circles, which is, how are storylines being built? How are character arcs being built? Who's sort of the standout characters? I think Olga thus far has been getting sort of a traditional winner's edit, in that she's sort of been talked about as, again, she's introduced as like nobody knows who she is, but then she keeps getting these sort of mentions from Daniel Negreanu and other players like, oh, she did a good move there. She's been the one to beat. She's been the one that's the most impressive, which is reflective of a winner's edit. Josh Arias is sort of getting like the comic relief edit. Like they keep cutting back to him to get a good reaction out of people. And he's done well too to warrant the edit that he's been getting. But yeah, it's just kind of funny to see how they're using the traditional code of a reality show to build characters and distinguish amongst different people, which is again a sign, I think, that they're trying to expand outside of the poker community with this show.
Yeah, and speaking to the different types of almost just clips they use, the confessionals are surprisingly not as strong a presence so far as I might have thought. For the most part, they're kept towards sort of like post-mortem hand analysis. I know I went with this hand because I thought this. Usually, after a bust set or after a match concludes, and I think that's a smart move, because really we get so much great poker analysis from the guys watching the action as it unfolds. And as we were watching, we were analyzing it and talking about stuff too. So there's a lot of camaraderie in the different levels of how you can learn watching these hands take place. and it's very much edited and very similar to Poker After Dark, sort of the layout. So we get to see a very strong sense of the tables, the view of the whole table, the cards on the table. I compare it to when we watched the main event live on the table 3 stuff, where you couldn't see who had what cards. That's we have all the information we need, and then even more than you might expect. So it really is successful in that aspect. You mentioned Kevin Martin, and it's kind of funny. He's kind of almost the audience surrogate during the introduction portion of episode 1. So he's the very first guy to come out onto the stage, pick a card for his team he'll be on. And I want to say that very first, it's about 16 or so minutes of episode 1 is sort of, I call it kind of the introduction phase of the episode. And that might sound like a long time, but I think it's actually, they did kind of the perfect balance of how long to linger on that part of the cast rollout one by one. They come in maybe 2 at a time. Sometimes the cast, oh my God, hey, oh my God, what team are we on? Just that whole segment was just really useful in seeing these guys sort of bounce off each other in that first sort of conversation with each other, as we sort of settle into what sort of social dynamics and conversation these guys will have as we go forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's nice that they come out one by one. There's a little blurb about their experience, so you know who the lesser known players are. There's also little clips of the footage that they own, so they can show, like Josh Aria winning a tournament, the Poker Masters, whatever. But yeah, it's very nice. And it's also funny that they're all well versed with reality shows. Some of them have been on reality shows in the past. David Williams is on MasterChef, for example. Maria Ho is on The Amazing Race, things like that. So they're like looking for like clues in the studio. They're like checking under chairs, like clues for the hidden immunity idol or whatever, which I thought was kind of nice. They're definitely, like, everybody seems there to win, but they're also there to have fun. I mean, it was $456,000, which again isn't a huge amount of money. It's not the $1 million they went on Survivor, but that's still like a decent amount of change, especially for these lesser known players. So definitely sort of nice that there's definitely a competitive vibe here, but there also is a let's get to know each other, let's form teams, let's have conversations with each other vibe as well.
Absolutely. And again, so I kind of broke the first episode into kind of 3 chunks. The first being the introductory phase, second one being the Ali Najad comes out, tells them the structure of the show. They break into their groups, they formulate their roster for the first challenge, the team sit and go match ×4, and then the third section being the majority of the first match sit and go of the marathon of 4. And I like that we had time to sort of get some of the strategic talk out in the open, rather than us not knowing exactly what their approach was for the first challenge, going in blind. Some reality shows have merits to that idea where we don't know what the plan is in advance. I think in this case it totally works. And again, this cast, they come in completely blind into the structure of the show. Negreanu, he talks about how you can more or less, you can pregame almost sometimes and figure out, basic strategies. When you come in totally blind, we get a bit more less filtered, raw look into how they approach a new and somewhat, stressful situation.
Yeah, I mean, to go in a little bit more into the mechanics here, so there's 4 rounds of competition, whittling down the field to one champion for $456,000. Each player starts with 20 gold coins, and you win challenges and you collect coins. With the final round converting however many chips you have into big blinds, 1 chip per big blind. And how it also works within at least this round with the team sit and go is you can cash in 1 coin to get a time extension of 30 seconds. So you have 30 seconds to make a decision. We see Nikita Luther do that once. Nobody else does that. And then obviously, as I mentioned, there are 4 rounds of the team sit and go, and each one has a different coin structure. And then obviously whoever you get to keep whatever coins you win at the end, but the team that wins the least coins over these 4 rounds is eliminated. So we're getting 4 players eliminated right off the bat, which when I heard about this format, I figured, when I heard about the show, rather, I figured it would be 1 player eliminated per episode. So this was different. So again, this gives more time to allow the players' personalities to settle. Also gives more time for the poker play to settle. So I like this as a format. I mean, I am kind of curious about what the remaining challenges are going to be, how exactly this final round is going to work. But I do like that, again, they have this idea of converting chips into big blinds in the final round. So it'll encourage players, even though they're working in teams, to still play for themselves. They got to win more chips in order to have more big blinds at the end.
Yeah, and not to mention, with this first challenge, there's different structures for the payouts for fourth, third, second, and first for each round. And so one key element here is a lot of these teams had the idea of let's put the worst players in the earlier rounds that are worth fewer gold coins, but at the same time you also have to balance of if you think you're the worst player and you might want to still fight for your own personal interests, because if you're playing for the least number of coins, even if your team moves on past this round, you're now in a worse spot compared to your teammates if they won more coins by virtue of playing in a different round. So again, there's kind of this give and take of the team versus yourself, which is an element not really found in poker, really in any other aspect, which is one of the reasons why so many of these players are kind of caught in this crosshairs of, oh my God, I'm so used to playing for myself. Or maybe, if it's a tag team event, you maybe have one teammate, but you really struggle to find a situation where you'd be trying to get this entire cluster of 4 players who are all playing for themselves to all work together into one common goal. So that's very cool, the psychology of it. And you have to wonder, how future rounds will distinguish maybe those sort of personal, selfish drives for the particular team.
Yeah, definitely. Again, it depends on what exactly these other challenges are. But for now, I mean, it's definitely seems to be more of an emphasis on team focus than individual focus. All the players on a team are rooting for each other. They're jumping up out of their seats, rooting each other on. So it is definitely something to consider moving forward, whether that team dynamic will change. Will there be any sort of like an alliance type thing like in Survivor moving forward? That we don't know. Will there be advantages like there is in Survivor? We don't know yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how that moves.
Yeah, and with reality shows, especially brand new ideas, franchises, IPs, that first episode of that first season there's kind of magic to it, because if this was like season 6 of Game of Gold, their patterns emerge and just they can break off twists from rules or challenges from seasons past. But when you're coming in totally cold, even just regular rules just sort of really capture you and really kind of just make you be like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. I think back to a show, it was called How I Survived a Japanese Game Show, and that first season just had this different energy and magic to it that season 2 just did not have. And I'm not surprised that show only lasted 2 seasons. And I think I wonder if they hopefully go on to make seasons 2, 3, 4 of this show. I really hope that they really put a lot of work into making each season feel distinct from each other.
Yeah, and I hope they also moving forward that they don't go the celebrity route where they just have only celebrities, or God forbid, they get Stephen Baldwin and just these people who are always on these celebrity reality shows to do this. I mean, a season where it's 16 people I've never heard of could be interesting as long as the personalities are big, and again, each of the players are have some experience in the past. But again, like I do like what we have in terms of the rules and the field and the challenges right now. Again, keeping in mind that, this is just the first challenge. They're spending a lot of time per episode on these on these games. So they are skipping through quite a lot of hands. So again, I mean, it's still too early to say, but again, there is a good basis here to move the show forward.
Especially the editing and the sound design and just all of that, because there's no commentary playing during the sit and goes. The only commentary per se is the players watching on those team screens in the lockdown rooms, and with the occasional confessional after like a big hand after someone's knocked out or something. And so because of that, the music sometimes will be dramatic, it'll cut out entirely, or it'll ramp back up, or there's a lot of little details that they really probably could have gotten away with not doing. They put in there, and so I really appreciate those small nuances.
Yeah, we mentioned that Ali Najad is the host, but he's really only come in just to announce what the game is and what the structure is. And there is a very funny moment where they're all sort of all the players are gathered around talking to each other. Then Ali comes in. There's sort of like sting as he walks in, like it's all dramatic. Like I thought that was kind of funny. There's like little stuff like that in terms of the edit. Like when there's a big card that happens on the turn or the river, the camera will sort of zoom in comparison to just sort of a basic overhead shot of the cards. Little editing tricks like that, which I think go a long way.
Absolutely, and I think it's only pertinent that we have to discuss each team, because the 16 players are split into 4 teams of 4: spades, hearts, diamonds, and clubs, completely by random. So there's 4 ladies in the cast, but the split is 2-1-1-0 as a result of the randomization. And so starting at the top here, we have the spades team: Fedor Holtz, Charlie Carrel, Yo Viral, and Nikita Luther. The hearts team: David Williams, Andy Stacks, Olga Ermocheva, Robinson, And then on the diamond team, Maria Ho, Josh Aryeh, Jungleman, England. And then on the clubs, we have Negreanu, Kuhn, Soya, and Kevin Martin. And when they were breaking these teams up, I kind of had my initial like gut instinct sort of hierarchy of like the best players, how I'd rank the teams from best to worst. And I'd probably go with clubs, diamonds, spades, hearts. That was just kind of my like initial sort of like no analysis. That was my interpretation there. How about you?
Yeah, more or less that. I mean, I think there's a good mixture of players for each team. Again, this was random, supposedly. I mean, who knows how the producers may have jimmied things a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I thought this was a pretty good mix of players to have distributed throughout. We have, again, a mixture of well-known players and quote unquote less experienced players on each team. And then again, they have to go through the motions and decide, do we leave our least experienced players first? Do we put them up first because it's not worth as many coins, or do we save things for later? And also sort of guessing like what other teams would do. That was really sort of an interesting level of, hearing the teams comment as match two comes, we're like, oh, I bet they would have done that. I'm surprised they didn't do that. Things like that. And, again, a lot of these players have also played with each other. So they know their dynamics and know how they'll play. And again, that could affect their decision. There's all these different sort of strategies going on. So yeah, I mean, I agree with your ranking as the matches began, but I also left things open for, just the whole, just for poker general. I mean, you never know what will happen.
Yeah, and you mentioned the players. We have different backgrounds, different levels of accomplishments, and during the introductory phase of episode 1, we get a brief interview of each player, and then on the screen they list majority or the highlights of their poker accomplishments, how much money they've made, any titles they have, bracelets, WPT event wins, etc. So even if you came in totally cold, didn't know them, you could at least, if you were paying attention, you could at least get a vague sense of how accomplished they were. So that was a smart move. And again, they cover 16 introductions in relatively short fashion. They have enough time to mix in some, oh hey, oh my god, how are you? So that was very business like in their execution of that. And again, I think about it, if I was on one of these teams trying to figure out which match I would be in, they'd probably just force me, the guy with 0 cash to his name, to play in the first round. I guess I might pretend like, oh, maybe round 2, why not? But the funniest moment in episode 1 for me at least was when the 4 players in the first sit and go come out, and Charlie Carrel chimes in, well, the optics for this doesn't look good when we have 3 of the ladies out there.
The first round is Nikita, Olga, Kinda England, and Michael Soiza. So I've got, that's just kind of the way it goes. I mean, again, Nikita, Olga, and Kinda England all have results that are notable, but yeah, the optics could have been a little bit better.
Not to mention, because Maria Ho is on the same team as England, she can't literally. So that's the max number of women that could have been legally playable in that first round. And again, everyone gets 20 coins to start off with. It looks like the sit and go has about 20-minute levels with I think like a 30-second shot clock, and then the time extension is 30 seconds each. And they begin with 2 million chips with the blinds 10K, 20K, and a 10K big blind ante. So only one small blind is the big blind ante, which I think makes sense given you have a 4-handed, floor max table. That kind of makes sense for me. And I compare back to, our discussion on Poker League television, where they had literally like 15 or 10 big blinds in Poker Invitational. And although it's a pretty fast structure, they still have a decent number of big blinds for those first couple of levels where I didn't feel like the action was so handcuffed to begin with.
Yeah, and the action was pretty good. Thus, I mean, through the whole match, it was pretty good. A lot of different, again, we get to see all 4 players, how they play, learn a little bit about their personalities as they do table talk and stuff. They were willing to talk at the table a little bit, not as much as maybe casual viewers of poker would have liked, but you do get some sense of who they are and how they play. And yeah, like a lot of different hands, Olga raising with 8-4 suited against Luther's Queen 9, Soiza with aces, Kinda England with King 9, getting involved in a pot there. I mean, we see a lot of different hands, mostly big hands, consequential hands, very, no walks, nothing like that. There's even a joke at one point about, Olga saying like, somebody give me a walk, I'll have the first walk. And they're like, I had a walk. And it, kind of, it's a funny moment. But yeah, I mean, again, the poker play is pretty good.
Yeah, put them pretty good. And also, I mean, yeah, some hands are skewed. We're not seeing every single hand back to back to back. And even some of the hands that are maybe just like 2-bet, 3-bet fold, because they're mixing in all the other players watching, I feel like even the kind of forgettable hands become memorable because of sometimes these reactions are so funny. Josh Arieh swears like a sailor almost every other hand he's seen watching. Everyone's panicking. In the first round, they don't know where the direction of the matches will go, so they're kind of all like just trying to. No one's in panic mode by this point. By match two, people are a bit more worried about how their placement is shaping up as this round one is going on. But again, the hand selection. I mean, when it's a four max, you're going to see a lot of kind of not crappy, but middling-ish hands be in there because of ranges as when you're so short-handed. But even then, I was still very impressive with the hands as they played out.
Yeah, I mean, nothing too extravagant or over the top. I mean, a lot of, hands playing themselves, calling with second pair, calling with one pair, a big bet on the river, things like that. Again, very solid poker playthrough. I really don't think there's been any sort of weak links in the poker playing thus far. A couple of hands, that again Ben and I may disagree with our experience, compared to these people, or lack thereof, yeah. But we played the MSO, we were up there. But yeah, I mean, again, the poker play itself. I mean, I think Ben and I, being poker enthusiasts, we find this stuff entertaining. But with the commentary, and again with how it's presented, and that each hand does feel consequential within the episode, I think this is something that even somebody who's not too fond of poker but is interested in reality television would like.
Absolutely. And kind of the like spur of the moment split second swearing like, oh crap, that's just happened. That's just kind of like little moments of small comedy for me that thing would work. It kind of feels like if you combine Big Brother with like the poker Premier League. If you kind of squint your eyes, you put them together, this would kind of be the overall flavor. This was like two ingredients mixed together. And both of those shows are obviously very different things. But I think you take the audience of both halves of that and then put them together, and then you have a successful show there. As far as as the match unfolds, so the first match, Olga kind of definitely showing a bit more of the aggression compared to the other three players. Nikita Luther definitely kind of felt like she's playing the ladder up. England maybe kind of had the in over my head a little bit syndrome a little bit. Soiza didn't just kind of didn't do a ton. He was maybe kind of the least standout out of the positive or negative for my analysis here. But what I liked was because we're not doing one match per episode per se. As the playing of the episode is about 52 and a half minutes long is going on, we don't really know how the episode's going to actually conclude. We don't know if it's going to end with the whole table ending in like one big four-way all in. Is it going to be like some cliffhanger like the river about to come out? Oh no, or we don't really know. So you're not with other shows like Survivor. You're watching Tribal Council. There's still 10 minutes to go in the hour, so there's probably going to be a tie in the vote, and there's going to be a revote. So that's where with this you don't have that in the back of your head.
Yeah, I mean, this episode ends with England going all in with Ace-8 and Olga calling with Ace-King, and before the flop is dealt, we hear reactions from all the players who are in the green rooms, and then right as the cards are being dealt, the episode ends. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a good way of ending the episode. It's keeps the audience on their feet. The second episode doesn't end with an all-in. It ends with a big, shall we say, a big bad call. But yeah, I mean, I like that it puts the audience on their feet, that it's, again, not every single episode's going to end with the player being eliminated. Not every single episode's going to end with this, huge dramatic moment. It might be a smaller scale hand, but still something that'll keep you interested as you turn to the next episode.
Yeah, and really the only like small wrinkle in the gameplay by any one player, you mentioned it earlier, was Nikita Luther spending one coin for a time extension. She was debating a hand with Ace Queen with a lot of action in front of her. And it really kind of puts in my head, I really wonder, would I value the coin more or the time extension more? And my thought was, if I'm like talking myself into a call, I would probably use the coin. And if I'm thinking about I'm probably going to fold, I would probably save the coin, because you're trying to earn coins. You're just versus trying not to lose coins.
Right.
So I think that's sort of, you're trying to put yourself in the best position, not just like this middle, if I'm full position, because one coin probably not a huge deal given the payouts of these matches are 30, 20, 15, 7, 9. Ones you're probably not going to be in a tiebreaker very often where one coin will make a huge difference. Although I said, although the three of the teams are very close together separated by 3 coins, after 2 rounds. But nonetheless, I wonder with you, Sam, how would you what value would you put on that using that one time extension?
No, that's a good point that you bring up. I mean, I think it would again just depend on the spot. I mean, Nikita was in a tough spot. She definitely needed a moment to think it over. And they were all sort of celebrating on the other team. She used a coin. That's so good for us after she folded. Um, Again, I think it would really depend on the situation, but I think you're right. Yeah, if I was leaning toward a call and it was a big pot, then I would, I'd be more comfortable spending the coin. But if it's something that I feel like I think I'm going to fold here, I'm not really sure what my action's going to be. I think I would probably hang on to the coin and just muck my hand. But again, it's a good point to be raising up, especially. Yeah, I mean, after 2 rounds, they're within I think 5 coins of each other, 3 of the teams, with the 4th team being a little bit farther behind. But still, the way the structure is done with this mystery 4th round, anybody can catch up. So it's a good point.
At the same time, though, Nikita did finish in 2nd place in that first round. I feel like if there's still 4 players left at the table, and you're putting yourself in a spot where you could be out 4th again, maybe you're trying to avoid being, not only out first but also down a coin. So, if your head's up and you're guaranteed a pretty healthy chunk of coins right off the bat, especially if this is round 3 or round 4 and your team's in a relatively good spot, maybe you can be a bit more liberal with your usage of it. But nonetheless, it's just one layer that I wonder, will it play a factor? Luther was, again, she's one of the less experienced players, so I do wonder if the top people are used to making very fast decisions, and therefore would probably not be using time extensions going forward.
It's a good point. Yeah, I mean, again, we just don't know. I mean, again, Luther finished in 2nd place, Olga getting 1st place, Soiza getting 3rd, and kind of England getting 4th. So again, we're just going to have to see how that plays out over time, how these coins are valued. Are the professionals really thinking this through about the coin? Or are they willing to sacrifice 1 or 2 coins in different spots? I mean, the action happens very fast. Everybody is making their actions fairly quickly. This was the only time really we saw throughout these 2 episodes that she needed that extra moment, and any player needed that extra moment. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think back to the controversial fire tokens of Survivor Season 40 Winners at War, where the tokens were just so clunky in their usage. With these coins here, again, this is only the first of of 2 current usages for them. One being time extensions, two being, well, I guess 3. One being if you're out the fewest, you're out, and 3 being their value on the final table of this entire show. You have to wonder what other usages will they have. Could a player bribe someone else saying, "Hey, if you show me a card, I'll give you a coin," or if you fold, I'll give you a coin. I wonder if that's a possibility. I don't think they probably not, given they haven't mentioned that as being a possibility. But I'd be very curious if it was. And again, as long as the coins, I mean, I'm not suggesting every player needs to burn coins and time extensions, but I want them to have a bit more alternate utilities in this show, just to sort of keep things fresh.
Yeah, I wonder if there's going to be some form of an advantage like there was for fire tokens. You pay 2 coins and you get to, I don't know, take a bet back or something. I don't know. That'd be kind of interesting. Or if there's, if a team with the most coins at the end of a round gets an advantage or something. I mean, we're gonna have to see. I don't know.
Yeah, and because I think back to all those gimmicky Poker Stars like poker games where you have like superpowers, or you can like get rid of a card and swap one out or something, or all these things. I wonder if maybe a future round might be some sort of like auction where you get to have these advantages like in Survivor, where you can an extra vote in Survivor, where it could be like an extra card in one hand, or you can see one of your opponent's cards once, or you can redeal out the river once. Or I wonder if there's so many possibilities that I'm very excited to see. As again, this is a relatively not simple, but relatively basic first round, which is complicated in execution. But I'm saying like the key tenets of this first challenge, Team Sit and Go, is French vanilla. I won't say vanilla, it's like French vanilla. And I wonder if we get like some rocky road, more complicated challenges in future iterations of the show, or even of the season.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be super complicated, but I would like, again, some sort of use of that. I mean, it could just be an informal thing like, hey, I'll give you a token if you let me see one of your cards. If they allow that as a rule, like, I'm totally fine with that, and there doesn't have to be anything else. There doesn't have to be an auction or anything, but they should make that clear to the audience that you can do that, make that clear to the players that you can do that. I mean, I can see if there's a season 2, somebody just like coming up with that, hey, I'll give you a token, and they run it by the producers. The producers are like, yeah, you can do that. And that becomes an element of the show later on. I mean, who knows? We'll see.
Yeah. And so again, episode 2 concludes the first sit and go match where Olga really kind of maintains her very steady chip lead after busting kind of England, and from there, she just kind of does the old big stack bully routine until Soiza ultimately busts in third, and then Luther pretty much when it wins one hand against to double up through Soiza to ultimately finish in second place. And again, I kind of like how in Poker Superstars, how those like bottom three spots were kind of like you were unhappy if you got third or better, you were kind of happy. Again, I think that's second place again, a little cliche top half. Kind of like if I got second place, I'd be pretty happy with that going forward.
Yeah, again, the coin structure is the way it is. So, the final position, you're not out of the woods if you lose the first round, you get fourth place. Especially because we see in the second round, Josh Aryeh managing getting the first place, and you can make up the difference quite easily. But yeah, if you're getting fourth in the first round and then your teammate gets third or fourth in the second round, I mean, you've dug a pretty big pit for yourself, and you really have to do well in the final two rounds in order to do well. So, maybe the coin system can be a little bit different in other tournaments, but I like the coin system as it stands now in terms of how the coins are laid out from fourth, third, second, first.
And you mentioned what happens if you get third and a fourth, and the team that was kind of my favorite going into this entire season from the starting lineup here is Team Clubs, and again they still had their two heavy hitters, Negreanu and Kuhn, left yet to play, but I mean there's about a 20 or 25 coin gap between them and the other three teams, and we don't know the coin structure of the fourth round. We can discuss what our predictions are for that round. But again, if they don't, put up decent results in rounds 3 and round 4, they could be, my favorite people in this season could be gone just like that.
Yeah, I mean, you have a team with Daniel Negreanu and Jason Kuhn, and you'd think they'd just be rolling up, but no, that's really not the case here. And again, not that Stacks or Martin are playing, or sorry, are playing super bad, but I mean, it's just like, or Soiza and Martin, excuse me, are playing super bad. It's just, you gotta do a little bit better than what you're doing.
Yeah, so round 2, the sort of defining moment for me was really this pretty, I mean, Jason Kuhn defended it, but this pretty light shove by Martin, who had already taken a blow or two earlier in the match. He shoves what appears to be like 10 big blinds of queen 10 suited from the button.
Yeah.
And Charlie Carrel gets ace queen, obviously calls and wins. But I don't know. I mean, queen 10 suited, I feel like that's the borderline hand of where, they might have been considering a shove in that spot. And I probably myself don't make that shove. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I fold. I mean, Jason Kuhn was very much in favor of the queen 10 shove, and was even giving Martin a high five afterwards, saying like I would have done the same thing. But yeah, I think I would have just folded there and waited for a better spot. Obviously, we can see the cards. We see that Carrel has ace queen and has the queen 10 crushed. But I think there's just better spots to wait, especially given that in the very next hand, Martin shoves with 4-2 off.
Yeah, and I think his defense of that was he was going to have the majority of his chips in the big blind ante. So he only has so many chips left to post the big blind. So he's not going to, really gain too many chips from a double up on the next turn if he does double up. So that I kind of understand. But 4-2, and not to mention the the structure of the show incentivizes, knocking a player out. And the other players had enough chips to afford to call one big blind, so that again all 4 players threw the flop, and therefore that 4-2 is was like 11% 4 ways, and that's just not going to cut it when you're trying to at least get that first double up to maybe get third place overall in that match.
Yeah, so Martin busts, and we're down to 3-handed. And then Stack busts shortly afterward, and then it's Carrel versus Aryeh, with Carrel having a very, very big chip lead. So I'm watching this thinking, all right, Carrel's going to take this one home, and it's not quite what happens.
Yeah, it definitely felt like Carrel kind of choked. It was very a Patriots Falcons Super Bowl thing where there's a couple hands where they're all in pre-flop. The hands kind of play themselves, I guess. But there was this one hand where Carrel ends up folding with queen high on the river, but he called a pretty sizable turn bet, which I feel like if he saves those chips there, maybe the match plays out a bit differently there. But props to Aryeh. He was definitely playing. He hadn't done anything too flashy up until heads up play. Really, kind of almost. I wouldn't say folded his way to second place, but he didn't play himself out before second place. And considering that England had gotten fourth place, the pressure was really on him in that first round more than anybody else. I mean, team clubs were obviously a little bit worried about third place and getting fourth place in round two, but really when Aryeh, I was a little surprised that they put Aryeh in the round two to begin with. Actually, I think that maybe it could have been in round two, maybe. But either way, props to Aryeh for getting wins. Won a couple of coin flips essentially to win, but Carrel was banking on the fact that we already have a second place. I'm guaranteed second place again, so first place is good, but it's not the BL end all if I don't close it out. So I can when the big stuff, I can kind of understand how those two variables might have played into his decision making.
Yeah, the big hand that they hype up in the confessionals and toward the end of the episode is Aryeh has king nine. He calls the big blind. Carrel has jack 10 suited and shoves, and everyone's sort of hyping up like, oh, what's Aryeh going to do? And Aryeh manages to call with the king nine, wins the flip, doubles up, and then from there it's pretty much over. And so they really try to hype this up in the edit as Carrel felt that he had a read on Aryeh and felt that he was weak. But that Aryeh just kind of thought about the shove range for a moment, thought about whether, what exactly hands would Carrel be shoving within this spot, and also felt that he was a bit of an underdog to Carrel. So he called, and obviously the hand held up. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting spot. I mean, I don't know if I would have shoved with the jack 10 there, and I don't know if I would have called with the king 9 there. So I'm glad, again, that in the edit they really laid this out, that this was based on a soul read from Carrel, and that Aryeh also just managed to make a better read and think things through at the end of the day with again, only 30 seconds to make a decision. He was able to make that decision that quickly.
Yes, and as a result, with the second of two matches shaping up, that's where you can you have a better idea of the full picture of how round one could conclude, because again we have the leaderboard here with three teams very close together. So really, and again obviously team clubs well considerably behind with Negreanu and Kuhn still left to play. And again, I think the biggest wild card left is really what the coin payout structure will be for match 4.
Yeah.
I really I haven't had a theory. It could be all for first place. It could be like 100-0-0-0. That'd be kind of funny. Although I am curious, will it be hidden until the match is over, or will it be hidden before the match is played, or will they say how many they got when they're bust out? I'm very curious how that will be revealed.
Yeah, I wonder if there's going to be some sort of twist. I mean, it could be something like 100-0-0-0, or if you can opt out of this round and you get some sort of advantage or something. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see, again, are they going to be doing twists like that a la Survivor and Amazing Race, or are they going to just try to kind of stick this to a somewhat by the numbers poker game show, or if they want to save that for season 2? I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I ask you, Sam, you're a very tight player by nature. I'm, maybe like 15% less tight than you. I'm still pretty tight on average, I think. What would be your approach in one of these 4 max sit and goes?
Well, I mean, first I would just try to get a read on the other 3 players, just try to see how they're doing. And then, yeah, I mean, given how deep the stacks are to begin with, I mean, I'd be, a little bit more willing to have a little bit more of an open range to begin the sit and go, especially because playing more pots would let me see what the other players are doing. And then as time goes on, I would try to keep things tight. I think that's how I would do it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm playing not to lose, but I'm also, but I still want to keep a little bit of playing to win in my game there. I mean, if one player sort of early on takes a pretty big blow, loses 300,000, 400,000 in an early hand, I might lock into that player and try to just beat them. If they sort of they might be a bit more likely to polarize their gameplay there if they're in an early deficit. But I don't really put too much faith in like getting a read on somebody because these are some of the top players. So I really doubt they're very readable. I'm probably the most readable at the table by far, if it came down to that. But obviously, if you're playing the first round, there's a bit less pressure on you, I suppose. But and I do think that it's dropped, I think, by Maria Ho briefly in episode 1, where like looking out for yourself, you should be wanting to play in the higher coin matches, so then you have more coins for yourself. But I think it's almost a little bit too early for that to matter too much, because it's a long show. This is still the early goings, and if I have 5 more coins doing one substantial gameplay change, it doesn't matter if you don't get to the end anyway.
Yeah, I mean, when I say I want to get a read on people, I mean, I'm not saying like soul reads. I mean, just get a sense of like how exactly are they playing? Are they nervous or not? I mean, kind of England did seem a little bit nervous to begin with. Dean Eggs also was talking about how nervous the other players were, which was very funny. I mean, Dean Eggs is in the 3rd match against Ho, Robinson, and Viral. And just like right off the bat, Dean Eggs is like, what are you going to do? Are you nervous? How are you feeling? Just right away. And then there's Maria Ho with ace 10, just like ready to go, just like stone faced as she wins the first hand, which I thought was really funny. But yeah, I mean, I would, again, try to get a sense of how exactly are they playing? How are they feeling in the moment? Are they, changing how they talk at the table, how they look at people, how their bet sizes are? Because I'm there and I'm the least experienced person there, probably. Just little things like that.
Yeah, and speaking to just who I'm rooting for, and it's because I usually, if this had been like 16 top pros, I'd be rooting for my usual suspects, Negreanu, maybe even Fedor Holtz, Charlie Carrel, etc. But because we kind of have those less experienced players, I'm kind of reverse rooting for them instead, because this is not life-changing money for any of these top players. It's still a decent chunk of change. I'm not trying to dismiss almost $500,000, but and again, it would be cliche for me just to root for the ladies all over again, because I always root for the ladies in the main event. But because England just kind of seemed the most like out of place in that first round, I'm kind of rooting for her and sort of an underdog story. I don't put too much weight in her actually doing that, but her team's is in the top 3 right now, so there's no reason to assume that her team will go out in the first elimination section. And it would be pretty funny if Negreanu's team clubs goes out first. I'm kind of rooting. I don't want them to go out first though, because I want to see Negreanu at least make it halfway into the show, which would be I would assume kind of like the end of section 2. If the team then goes to section 1. So if I had to pick one team to go out first, I guess I just by default I'd pick Team Hearts, because I know the least about Andy Stacks, Robinson. I like Olga plenty, but I don't think that makes up for how much I like the other teams more. So again, I'm not rooting against anybody, personally. Just more from if I had to, pick who I'm rooting for the least, it'd be the Team Hearts.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to see moments from everybody. I want to make sure get a good sense of what their personalities are like, how they're rising to the moment and all that. So I'm not really rooting for against anyone. Like I said, I think Olga's been getting the most traditional winner's edit, in that again the show seems to be going out of its way to mention how good she is, that she gets a confessional explaining how confident she is and how happy she is to have won. And other players are talking about how good she is. So it definitely seems like the edit is trying to tell us that she'll go far and that she deserves to win if she winds up winning. But yeah, like I said, I mean, everybody's just has their personality on display very well here. I mean, I love everything Josh Aryeh has said. After he wins, he stands out in the studio with his arms up like this, and he's like, "Who wants to interview me? I'm the champ." Like, I just love that. If there's a Survivor producer watching this, you have to cast Josh Aryeh. Like, he would be so perfect on Survivor. But yeah, I mean, I'm not rooting for or against anybody. I mean, whatever team loses, I'm going to feel some sort of loss, because everybody has been so well characterized thus far, or nearly everybody. So yeah, I mean, again, I just want to see exciting poker action. I just want to see good personalities, interesting challenges. I like the way the edit has been done thus far, that there's no commentary, no intrusive host or narration or anything like that. So just keep it up with that.
Yeah, and speaking to what the action, even hands that aren't exciting, like just by virtue of the structure of the show and the format, like even just the most benign or simple flops are just fun to be like, what could this be a hand where this team just totally gets screwed out of the whole competition? You could have a hand where it's ace king against like 5-3, and you're just like, any flop that comes is going to be entertaining, because either the ace king is going to win and the 5-3 is going to be like, the team's going to be no, why did you play 5-3? Or the ace king is going to go down, and another team's going to be like, oh my god, the ace king lost. I don't believe it. So again, even the most simple hands are elevated by just having the players watch it.
Yeah, I mean, you really don't know what's going to happen on these hands. I mean, you see so many different hands with so many different hole cards that, you're just sort of waiting like, okay, with Jack 4, you're going to flop trips here. Is this straight going to come in on the turn? There really is an unpredictable element that I don't really feel is really there with the WSOP or with other shows we've seen that I really do like.
Absolutely. As far as we're pretty high in the show, but if we're going to talk about maybe a few things for improvement, some negatives, which again, even if I say a negative is something very small in the grand scheme of things, there's not that many. I will say I definitely enjoyed episode 1 a bit more than episode 2. Like if I was going to give a score to episode 1, I'd probably go like 9 out of 10, and I'd give episode 2 maybe like an 8 out of 10. And it doesn't say that episode 2 is bad, or I mean, it's still a pretty good score. But I feel like just the introductory quarter of that episode was very fun to have, and I would have liked maybe a little bit more time between matches. And episode 2 is just kind of content, just kind of turn them out relatively quickly, which is fine. It keeps the pacing fast and tight, but it's just maybe one little like a little bit more in between matches 1 and 2, and then 2 and 3.
Yeah, I mean, getting a couple of the people who haven't been so characterized thus far a little bit more in the edit would be nice. Yeah, a little bit more sort of downtime between matches. What are they doing in between matches? We see that some teams have got food and they're eating sushi and whatever. I'm assuming they're allowed to step outside to go, get a delivery of food or whatever. Would have been kind of nice to just kind of explain that a little bit more. And then, yeah, just a little bit more clarity on what exactly the coins are. Are there going to be other advantages and other twists later on? I understand wanting to keep that a little bit of suspense. Obviously, we don't know what the last round in terms of the coins are going to be, but again, just a little bit more clarity on what the rules and structure of the game overall will be would have been nice. But yeah, again, just really sort of small things. And then like I could nitpick like the quality of the cameras in the green rooms were like maybe a little poor, I guess. I don't know. That's just like nitpick stuff. The studio looks really nice. There's a big screen that lists the blind structure and has a little countdown clock. When it gets to 10 seconds, the screen turns red, which I thought was kind of cool. Small things.
Yeah, and so this show is being released in Monday, Wednesday, Friday style. So 3 a week. Poker After Dark usually did like 5 a week, so I think 3 weeks is pretty good. You get enough downtime to digest an episode before the next. It's not just like Netflix binge streamed out all at once. I would have been a little annoyed if it had been only 1 episode per week. So I'm glad that they were able to have that ready to go. I guess in the back of my head, I'm a little concerned about the show's longevity, because episode 1 on YouTube, as of right now, has 189,223 views in 4 days. Now, it's only been 4 days, but if this show is going to explode and become like a relatively big success, I feel like those numbers aren't quite enough if the YouTube channel is the only way in which this is released.
Yeah, it is a little weird that they're only going the YouTube route. I mean, in terms of a production standpoint, the expenses, it really can't be that expensive to make the show. They already have the studio. They already have these green rooms. The mic and camera setup isn't really that expensive. The props wouldn't be that expensive. You can buy custom made cards for nothing. So as long as they keep it low expense, I mean, and they can get a few 100,000 subscribers for video, then maybe that's enough that they can make a season 2. But yeah, I mean, I do hope the numbers do get beefed up a little bit. Hopefully there's some viral moments and they can make like, a top 10 hands from Game of Gold and put this out there. Obviously with Daniel Negreanu and Maria Ho being big media personalities, they'll draw people in. They have their podcasts about the show. They'll draw people in. So, I mean, hopefully this can be a success. Like I said, if you're watching this and you're not a big poker enthusiast like Ben and I are, but you're into reality television shows, you're familiar with Survivor and The Amazing Race, if you've done orgs in, other states or whatever, I don't know anybody who's done those, but if you've done orgs, if you've won orgs like the Mole in other states, you should give this a shot.
Yeah, and in episode 2 on YouTube, it dropped yesterday. It's got about 131,000 views. So it definitely seems like after that first surge of people watched that episode, there hasn't been substantial people watching afterwards if you compare the viewing numbers here. And again, it is sponsored by GGpoker, which is kind of like the next big online poker company. So maybe you could wonder, maybe like season 2 they have 1 or 2 satellite tournaments where you play this and you can be a contestant in the next season. That could, be another way. I mean, there's not much in the way of direct advertisements. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously YouTube can monetize these videos with ads, like on a YouTube channel could. And there's maybe like one or two little like, subscribe to GGpoker like little things in the video. But otherwise, there's no like blatant ads for like Solve for Why or the building they're playing in, like for some of the poker league programs or the high roller balls. Like, this is the Aria. There's none of that, and so that's good. There's no like fake commercial breaks in the middle. So I don't know. I guess I want this show to succeed, and the reception online has been very positive amongst poker players on Twitter. And Negrano has talked about how much he loves the show so far. But again, we really need the show to blow up more. So guys, if you like reality TV, or friends that do, definitely get them to check this out so we can see if we can keep the show going.
Yeah, I think advertising within the reality show community would be a good way of going about this, because it really does feel like the structure of a Survivor show. And most people are familiar enough with Texas Hold'em that they're not going to be too confused by the rules and dynamics. And again, the hands largely play themselves. The players are talking through what their actions would be and what actions they would take and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. So again, I think a lay person would be able to understand this. So again, do try to send this to your friends, and hopefully again some reality show podcast can review this and see what it does.
Yeah, I think of obviously WSOP Podcast is a big community of reality show, of people watching various shows, good and bad, ones that we've heard of, ones that we've never heard of personally, etc. And again, this is the kind of show where it feels professionally produced. It's not just like some like I compared to Chase the Dream, where that was a poker documentary vlog series that had some bugs to work out and definitely kind of felt low budget. This one, I mean, it doesn't feel like it's as the top of like a network produced show, but I could easily see some Paramount Plus, Netflix, Hulu, someone picking up this show and throwing it on there, and it kind of blending into their roster of programming for reality television.
Yeah, and again, we're going to have to see how the rest of the season plays out, and what room there could be for season 2 if they want to kind of keep it within this format, or they want to go to 16 new players and have a satellite format. I mean, I'm not super fond of the satellite format just because it introduces the person who wins the tournament may not be the greatest personality for a reality show. You have to have good personalities and interesting opportunities for conflict in order to make a reality show work. So I don't know if they want to keep it with a sort of formal reality show casting system, or if they want to add that random variable in. And you may want to recruit people online too. I mean, they can always just get like audition tapes or whatever and find good personalities to be on the show. As long as they're good poker players, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and again, I'm not suggesting that they have a whole cast. I was thinking maybe like one or two spots on the 16 cast. Just because, again, even if you have one or two duds in a cast of 16, that's still a successful cast if you only have two duds. Yeah, if you ask me. Unless they both make to the finals, which would be hopefully unlikely if they're duds of a personality. Let's see, anything else here? So, anything else you want to talk about the show here? We've covered a lot so far. Anything else on your mind that jumped out that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah. So again, on my notes, I kind of listed sort of different categories of what I look for in a television show and a reality show. Number one, of course, being the structure. I'm a fan of the structure. 2, the cast. I enjoy the cast. 3, the flow. It's got a very good flow of things. We're not lingering on one hand too long. We've covered a little over 2 sit and go matches in 2 episodes. We're not spending a whole episode on one sit and go match. Kind of reminds me of Face the Ace a little bit in that respect. We're avoiding that. As far as the narrative, again, it's pretty early to be like, oh, the narrative of this cast member was ABC, this and that. I do think that that's probably not on the highest list of priorities for the show, as far as giving us maybe a few main characters amongst the 16 members of the cast, which is good as far as balancing. But again, part of what I'll be looking for in later episodes is, are there any people that I feel like I've seen this great growth or gameplay narrative of other ups and downs of their particular journey on this show? That remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, Survivor lends itself to something like that because you have to vote players out, you have to form strategy and alliances, and again, that's not going to be quite an element that I think it appears in this show. But I would like to see some sort of like alliance secret sharing. I'll give you this token if you do this for me, this favor, something like that. So yeah, I mean, if you're allowing more of that element within the show of alliance making, backstabbing, etc., then you're going to have more narrative and you're going to have more sort of dramatic intrigues. That could again be something they can lean into for future seasons. But with this, again, it remains to be seen what the other challenges are. Whether it's going to be sort of more sit and goes with heads up play, the final two players just face off against each other, and that's what decides the game, or if there's going to be some sort of other game that's thrown in. I don't know. We'll have to see.
And I do wonder how things will progress when let's say the club's team goes out first. Will they redraw for new teams? Will those three teams will one entire team be gone in the second phase of the show? Will it be 4 teams of 4, then 3 teams of 4, then 2 teams of 4, and then the final 4 square off maybe? Or will there be tribe swapping? There's again so many things they can do, and even if they don't do it in this season, they could always try it in a later season. So again, there's just so much potential and possibilities that it really makes me excited.
Yeah.
I guess the last thing on my list here was sort of the vibe of the show. And number one, the cast totally bought into the show. They're checked in. Everyone's locked in. They're enjoying the structure. Perhaps besides Gentleman, who kind of seems a bit more detached from things. Everybody else really seems to be enjoying themselves, getting into the moment. Even if it's like not acting, but like getting keeping the energy up. No one's phoning in at any point, and so just all around everything seems to be working as a brand new show should.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's all my thoughts, Sam. I did give my grades on the first 2 episodes. How would you grade them?
Yeah, 9 and 8 feel fair. Yeah, again, just small things in terms of things to work out. And again, first 2 episodes, we're gonna have to see how the rest of the season ends. I feel like I've said that several times already, but it is true. I mean, we're gonna have to just see how it sticks the landing, what the final challenges are like. Will there be any other gameplay elements? Will they vote somebody out at some point? Will there be some sort of twist challenge where if you cash in coins, you get an advantage, something like that? If it's just sort of more poker play, that's okay, that's fine. But if there are opportunities to do that form of play in this first season, as well as within future seasons, I mean, as you mentioned, the first couple of seasons of reality show, the show is finding its legs, but also the strategy is fairly basic. And then once the players and contestants become familiar with the show, then that's when the strategy really starts to ramp up and things get more intriguing. And you have to add more twists to get in the intrigue. So I'm going to be curious to see what exactly the baseline of the show will be moving forward.
Yeah, and I guess as far as other things I wanted to talk about, as far as general poker news, I did see on social media Cotton Snuffer getting back into the live poker side of things. He finished 11th place in a big, I think, in the NAPT. So congrats to him for finding a way to safely play some poker and play at a very high level. 11th place when it's your first event back after multiple years of being out of the swing of things. Very impressive.
Yeah, very nice.
And then I also saw that the World Series of Poker Bahamas have this, they call it the World Series of Poker Paradise Parlay, where if you had certain accomplishments during the summer in Las Vegas, and then you have some other results in the Bahamas, you get some sort of like cash prize or something like that. So I guess just kind of incentivizing people to go to those circuit of events. And I have to wonder, considering it's already middle of November, is that kind of a move out of desperation? Were they not getting the number of players they were expecting, so they kind of have to throw some more money up on the window to draw people in? I don't know. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not getting great vibes overall from this WSOP Bahamas with all this stuff that we've been hearing about vendors and hotels and things. So, I mean, fingers crossed that, again, they just get enough players and that they have engaging events and enough personalities come in. I mean, I think I've talked about this before with the WSOP, but I generally like a good mixture of old pros doing well as new faces and then just engaging poker action. So hopefully we'll just see engaging stuff. I mean, there's been plenty of events and tournaments where things haven't gone well in the preparation stage and then they turn around and manage to have a good event. So fingers crossed there. We'll see. I don't know. I hope for the best.
And again, even if this first iteration is a total disaster, I would hope they would at least take the critiques and find a way to spin it for version 2.0 if they, were so motivated to try it out. I mean, it's on paper, it sounds like a really fun idea to have, a few bracelet events in this, different location, just in the middle of burning hot Las Vegas. But obviously the fine details and, the top poker pros know, expect a certain standard, especially from this brand. And so, you know, all these promotions and giveaways and fine prints, it paints a troubling picture for me, who's just, an average poker Joe who, wouldn't go to one of these events. But if I, was ever going to, again, everything has to be just right for me, for example.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Well, guys, I think we've talked long enough at you. Thank you for listening to our latest episode. We'll definitely continue to podcast specifically about future episodes, maybe once a week, so that we can cover 3 episodes in one span. If you guys like that, we can give that a shot. We don't know how many episodes this entire show will be. I would have guessed probably around the 14, 16 range.
Yeah.
Maybe 16 because even 4, 4, 4, 4. I don't know, but the final round could be on the short side. Not quite sure. If you guys have any comments of your own about Game of Gold, for where you'd like the show to go, or things that you would have changed, or if you had a favorite player, let us know in the comments, and also for any other ideas for later podcasts as well.
Yep, and we're always happy to have people who were on the show or involved in making the show be interviewed, and anybody in the poker world who wants to be interviewed, we're happy to have you on the show. So just let us know.
And until next time, guys, enjoy your poker, enjoy your TV, enjoy your poker on TV.
Take care, everyone. I'm not Charlie Carrel, by the way.
You almost fooled me.